all the surveys that have been done by all the reputable democratic organizations, etc., in our country, including the CDD, the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, etc., none of those surveys show that corruption is uppermost in the minds of the Ghanaian people. And I'm sure many of you have seen the CDD surveys. Now, we want to remind the Ghanaian people and candidate Mahama that the reason corruption registered topmost in the minds of the Ghanaian people, the reason why it was a central issue in 2016, and the reason why it is not a central issue in 2020 is because it is not a palpable part of the governance structure and the governance system today. In other words, the point I'm making to you is that surveys show issues that are very much at play in the public space. So the fact that there was corruption in 2016 as a major matter for the Ghanaian people was because they could see corruption all around them, and that's why it was a matter. So we are putting to him that the fact that it is not a matter today is because it is not there, or that it is of minimal significance and play inside the public place. But since those who live in glass houses have chosen to throw stones, it becomes legitimate for people to expose who they really are. The reason people do not see corruption as an issue in this election is because they know that President Akufo-Addo is today building 5 interchanges with the same amount of money that candidate Mahama built 2, Kasua and Circle Dubai. It does not feature because Ghanaians see where government revenues are going. They see that government is spending billions of cedis and putting it back into the pockets of families through the free SHS, through small loans, through LEAP, through free water, through subsidized electricity, and good roads at less cost and fewer public procurement contracts through sole sourcing. But at the same time, Ghanaians have also been asking what actions were taken in the last 4 years to prosecute cases of corruption by the previous government. 55 accused persons have been prosecuted and some convictions. We have been tougher on corruption. We established the office of the special prosecutor, amended the law relating to asset declaration to provide for punishment for false declaration and non-disclosure, including forfeiture of appointment. We have increased the jail term for corruption by amending the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, to make corruption a felony rather than a misdemeanor. We have passed the Right to Information Act after 2 decades of lobbying. We have set up the Whistleblowers Act. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we know an era in this Ghana called the era of create, loot, and share. And we know those who superintended over the affairs of Ghana in the years of create, loot, and share. Under the create, loot, and share era, the state paid over $450 million in dubious and bogus judgment debts. Today, we have saved the state $13 million in challenging judgment debts, including having 6 of such cases amounting to 100 million euros and 179 billion cedis dismissed. Yes, 179 billion cedis. Because African Automobile versus Accra Metropolitan Assembly alone involved 153 billion cedis, which the previous government will 12 convictions so far and recovered 87 million cedis. Ladies and gentlemen, I can understand the disappointment of the Ghanaian people that nothing has happened so far in regards to the bribery case made internationally against candidate Mahama of the NDC. So bad is this case that candidate Mahama has not traveled to Europe or the United States since the issue broke in February 2020. Indeed, since March 2020, Ghanaians have been wondering when candidate Mahama will be interrogated over the 5 million euros bribery allegation. You remember the former special prosecutor said that because he's a candidate in this election, he didn't want to pursue him or invite him for questioning and etc., in case people interpret it as witch hunting. May we then surmise that candidate Mahama has thrown himself into this race in order to try and insulate himself from any investigation that may be pursued against him. In any event, it is important to inform the Ghanaian people that our focus is not a pursuit of candidate Mahama or vendetta against him or political witch hunting or whatever names that you would call it. Our focus today is to encourage the government of President Akufo-Addo to explore new steps to improve cooperation with our international partners in the fight against corruption. As you know, the consequences of corruption in our nation is far-reaching. Corruption leads a child of school age to be denied access to education because of lack of government funds. It can mean a pregnant woman meeting her untimely death whilst trying to give life as a result of inadequate livelihoods. That a woman dies because she's trying to give life as a result of inadequate resources. It can result in businesses collapsing and livelihoods being lost due to unreliable and erratic energy supplies. Corruption affects every single region, every single community, every single household, and every single individual in our country. That is why the Airbus corruption scandal should be of great concern to every Ghanaian. The fact that an international company was able to penetrate to the highest office of the land and further go on to pay bribes is an indictment on those who sold their integrity and used their public office for private gain. It is a scar on the conscience of those who were entrusted to seek for the common good of all Ghanaians, but instead were motivated by their personal pockets. That is why we are happy about the information from government that the akufo-addo government has begun moves to get for Ghana a fair share of the world record fines levied in the Airbus corruption scandal, in which Ghana was one of the countries most impacted by the corrupt transaction, which spanned 6 years. Read my lips, 6 years. 3 of them under candidate Mahama as vice president, and 3 of them under him as president. Since the Airbus company was paid by the hard-earned money of the Ghanaian people through government of Ghana contracts, we the Ghanaian people deserve to be remedied for what is rightly ours, and we will commend the president, Akufo-Addo, for pursuing our share of the $4 billion fine, which otherwise will go only to the 3 Western countries where the investigations took place. Government is aware that out of the 3.9 billion on fines imposed on Airbus, approximately $30 million relates to actions taken on the Ghana side. Government has since June this year been engaged with an international law firm with extensive experience in investigations and anti-corruption to see how they might best assist Ghana to repatriate its share of the fines. Government approach is not without precedent. For example, in 2008, the United States, Switzerland, and Kazakhstan established an NGO, the Butter Foundation, to manage the return of over $100 million that had been paid in bribes to top Kazakh officials through US and Swiss bank accounts. This process allowed the repatriated funds to be used towards projects of top importance to the Kazakh government, ultimately benefiting the Kazakh people. Again, in Kyrgyzstan, the US repatriated stolen assets from the prior Kyrgyz regime of Kurmanbek Bakiev and his son Maxim, which had been identified in a New York insider trading case and which were collected and approved for repatriation. The Kyrgyz Republic agreed to use the funds to improve public access to healthcare and new water supply systems for rural populations. Government will propose that any share of the fines recovered be used exclusively to enhance the capabilities of Ghana's anti-corruption and law enforcement agencies. You will recall that former President Mahama and his family are embroiled in what was described by the US Department of Justice as, quote, the largest global foreign bribery case to date. The expanse of the crime was unearthed in a 3-country investigation with court documents released by the United States District Court for Colombia, case number 12CR000021 TFH. Francis Tribunal Judiciaire de Paris, reference PNF 16159000839, and the United Kingdom's Crown Court at Southwark, Royal Courts of Justice, case number U20200108, speaking to the complexity of the crime committed. The Airbus affair, which was jointly investigated by the UK's Serious Fraud Office, the French Parquet National Financier, and the United States Department of Justice, concluded that Airbus, quote, between 2009 and 2015, engaged intermediary 5, identified as Samuel Adam Mahama, John Mahama's brother, for the sale of 2 aircraft to the government of Ghana. An amount of £3.8 million was paid to the Mahamas before the exposure of the criminal activity. Despite the case having been exposed, however, the Mahama brothers continue to demand the rest of the bribe. They continue to demand that the rest of the bribe be rightfully paid to them, according to court documents. This is greed with impunity. Now, the case of fake documents. Ghana's case has been singled out due to the impunity linked to Mahama's determination to continue cashing in on bribes in the face of international exposure, when he directed his brother to set up a bogus company in Ghana to receive bribe payments. According to court documents, the two Mahama brothers, i.e. candidate John Mahama and Samuel Adam Mahama, confected fake documents in order to collect bribe money from Airbus after the company's compliance officials said they could not pay Samuel Adam Mahama's company because he was the brother of a sitting president. The fake documents were channeled through a Spanish company to cash the bribe money, which was then transferred to the Mahamas, i.e. candidate Mahama. In a separate corrupt deal with the company, John Mahama, as substantive president, had been working on another contract involving 3 more aircrafts with Airbus when the tide turned against him. This could have fetched him an additional 10 million euros or even more. In January 2020, Airbus agreed to pay combined penalties of more than $4 billion to resolve foreign bribery charges with authorities in the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, arising out of the company's scheme to use third-party businesses to partners to bribe government officials in several countries, including Ghana. Whichever way you look at it, ladies and gentlemen, a former Ghanaian president, John Mahama, has been accused in court documents appearing in 3 countries of his personal involvement in an international bribery scandal valued at 5 million euros. What this means is that John Mahama could soon face the international criminal justice system. This is the man who is on your ballot paper, and you, as a Ghanaian voter, will be handed that paper on Monday to choose your president for the next 4 years. You risk choosing a president who will be a fugitive in France, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. Prosecutors in all 3 countries, in striking a deal with Airbus for the fines, made it clear that it would not stop them from pursuing the individuals involved. This means candidate Mahama risks arrest if he steps anywhere near those shores. Can you imagine a president of the Republic of Ghana who has an international arrest warrant on his head, who would not be able to travel freely abroad to fight and negotiate for Ghana? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the risk of voting for John Mahama. The alternative is indeed scarier than we all thought. Ghana would have a president facing criminal charges in 3 powerful strategic countries, our traditional development partners, as we say on the streets in Ghana, Tofiakwa. Now, on the question of huge financial kickbacks, the financing of terrorism and money laundering are serious crimes that have led major Western economies to rethink and examine their financial systems. Heads of governments around the world have generally shown a level of cooperation in the fight against money laundering and the financing of terrorism, and John Mahama's personal role in what is reported to be the biggest international bribery scandal puts the former president in a corrupt class of its own. The story begins with his swearing of the oath of office in 2009. Shortly after being named vice president of Ghana, John Mahama began talking to Airbus, a multinational company, about huge financial kickbacks in aircraft purchasing contracts. It was not his brother's deal initially. He introduced his brother to the deal only to collect the bribe cash on his behalf. We do not know what it is about John Mahama and aircrafts. Another brother brought after John Mahama became vice president. Again, following the death of President Atta Mills in 2012, a more empowered Mahama continued with the Airbus bribery negotiations when he became president, and even attempted to procure 3 more. He only stopped working on them when Airbus refused to pay an additional 1.8 million pounds, $1.8 million, which his brother Samuel Adam Mahama was demanding as arrears in bribe. Now, bribe also arrears. The late President Mills, according to his close allies, had launched investigations into an earlier Brazilian aircraft deal involving his vice president John Mahama, shortly before his health quickly deteriorated, leading to his death. Biggest global bribery scandal. But while the Brazilian aircraft deal has not received international exposure for its corruption, the Airbus bribery affair stands out in a crime that has been dubbed the biggest global bribery scandal. The criminal activity was carefully orchestrated during a 6-year period under the NDC, and at all material times in these 6 years, candidate Mahama was at the helm. Details of the corrupt Airbus deal were made public early 2020 when Mahama was identified in the United Kingdom's Crown Court documents as Government Official 1. Investigations spanning several years and continents led to a conclusion by fact finders from the United Kingdom, the United States, and France that Airbus executives who had worked with the former president had confessed to paying bribes through his brother Samuel Adam Mahama. Airbus was eventually found guilty by a high court in London and fined $4 billion in penalties. It is Ghana's share of these $4 billion penalties that President Akufo-Addo is pursuing in order to get back some of the money for our country, which we can then use to fund free SHS and fund roads and fund interchanges and do things that are worthwhile for the Republic of Ghana. The company, in light of fraudulent financial records, also admitted to paying huge bribes to government officials in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Malaysia, using family members of top officials to secure huge aircraft contracts. It is clear that the payment of government officials through relations was a model used by Airbus. Ghana's case, however, has attracted greater international curiosity, as it was the only country where the bribery was organized at the highest level and directly through the office of its then president, John Dramani Mahama, from Bole in the Savannah region of the Republic of Ghana. Ghana's case, however, has attracted greater international curiosity. Let me repeat that. Because it was the only country amongst all these other countries I have mentioned where the bribery took place, was organized at the highest level and directly through the office of its president. That president, for the avoidance of doubt, being John Dramani Mahama, son of E.A. Mahama, from Bole in the Savannah region of the northern, or in the Savannah region of the Republic of Ghana. The bribes, valued at 5 million euros and organized through his younger brother Samuel Adam Mahama, serving as an agent, were paid until 2015. We appreciate the extensive investigative work of our anti-corruption partners in the United States, France, and the United Kingdom. We also hope that in recognition of the fact that the Ghanaian taxpayer is more a victim than the Western nations mentioned, we may see a fair share of the restitution issued. We have confidence in the ability of our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to get Ghana a share of these fines. Ghana's share of the fines recovered, as I have said, may also be used to enhance the capabilities of Ghana's anti-corruption and law enforcement agencies. According to court documents from 2008 to 2015, Airbus engaged in a scheme to pay bribes to decision makers and government officials in several countries, including Ghana, to obtain improper business advantages. While the court documents do not directly list names of those involved in the case, investigative reporting has been able to definitively determine the names of individual 5 as Samuel Mahama, Adam Mahama, and government official 1, government official Bakope, as President John Dramani Mahama. The court documents note that contact between Airbus and the government of Ghana about aircraft sales began in June 2009, following an expression of interest by the government of Ghana. By August 2009, Airbus employee 15, senior Airbus SMO International, reported that he was in touch with government official 1 and his team. Paragraph 175, Regina versus Airbus SC UK High Court. All of these things I'm saying, I'm quoting court documents, established fact, not doctored tapes. Therefore, according to official court documents, candidate Mahama and former President Mahama, all one person, was in contact with Airbus a mere 7 months after being sworn into office as Vice President of Ghana. He started negotiating the deal himself before his brother was officially introduced to it, according to the court records. In any event, isn't it curious that a former president is accused directly in international courts of bribery, and to this day he makes no effort at all to challenge those decisions or even to refute them. Official court documents make it clear that the company used as conduit was established in Ghana on December 7, 2009 in the UK, and also in the UK in February the following year, that's 2010, with the same name, to serve as an intermediary to receive the bribes. The company, Didum Limited, was jointly owned by Samuel Adam Mahama, known as Individual 5 or Intermediary 5 in the court documents, and Philip Middlemas. Neither the company nor the directors had any previous experience dealing in this industry and were complete novices, according to the Suffolk Crown Court, Criminal Division of the UK High Court ruling. Now, when you go to seek a job, why? The first question that we ask around here and everywhere in the world, is it not about experience? Have you done this job before? It's a basic question that everybody asks. And then you take your brother to go and serve as an intermediary between Ghana and Airbus, who has never had any experience at all in Airbus or even aircraft transactions. Isn't that curious? When this was flagged up, the deception and corruption were further intensified by bringing in a Spanish company to front for bribe payments. The document states, and I quote, "The third party selected was a Spanish company, Intermediary 8, a pre-existing Airbus BP. Airbus employees agreed to deliberately circumvent the proper compliance process by falsely representing that the work in respect of the first campaign had been done by this company, who could in turn then make the money available to Intermediary 5 and others. Intermediary 8 had no previous links or experience of working in Ghana for any Airbus entity," unquote. This is paragraph 191 in the Regina versus Airbus case. Former President Mahama's fingerprints are all over this corruption scandal, and indeed it has been noted that on several occasions he was blind copied into emails to various ministries in order to speed up the process. How cheap and embarrassing for an international firm dealing with a ministry blind copy a whole vice president or president in emails. The only reason is that former President Mahama, candidate Mahama now, had a personal interest in the transaction and wanted to be fully informed, but without exposing to himself to his own subordinates. One such court document reads, and I quote, "On March 7, 2014, Airbus employee 16 emailed the Ghanaian Ministry of Defense, raising concerns about the lack of progress and requesting urgent action. Airbus employee 16 blind copied government official 1 and intermediary 5. Paragraph 205, Regina versus Airbus. Another one referring to the Ministry of Finance reads, and I quote, "On October 6, 2014, Airbus employee 16 emailed the Ghanaian Ministry of Finance with a broad overview of events thus far and saying it was urgent for the government to finalize the negotiation. Intermediary 5, government official 1, and another government official were blind copied into the email." Paragraph 206, Regina versus Airbus. Between 2009 and 2015, Airbus bribed Samuel Adam Mahama with approximately €4 million to induce his brother, former President Mahama, to use Ghanaian taxpayer dollars to buy Airbus aircraft, including 3 C-295 military transport aircraft. The UK court judgment reads, and I quote again, "Between March 2012 and February 2014, Airbus paid Intermediary 8 a total of £3,909,756, a sum in excess of the agreed commission amount as per the ECA declaration, between April 10, 2012 and 31st July 2013, intermediary 8 paid £3,850,115 to company D. Intermediary 8 retained £60,000, unquote, paragraph 196, Regina versus Airbus. When this transaction was brought to Parliament, and I want Ghanaians to recollect this incident in Parliament, because candidate Mahama says we have short memories. We don't. When this transaction was brought to Parliament, the then MPP minority raised an alarm about this Airbus deal and were concerned about its inflated costs and the rushed process to procure the aircraft. The then minority leader, Honorable Oseche Mensah Bonsu of Swami, is on record questioning the inflated price of the aircraft. If you Google it right now, you see the stories, this particular story on Ghana Web and all of our news portals. He questioned the inflated cost of the aircraft, which on the website of Airbus at that time was $22 million. Meanwhile, they had brought documents to Parliament seeking to buy these aircraft for 34.5 million euros. And Oseche Mensah Bonsu raised the alarm. He also registered his surprise at how a document could be sent to the Attorney General's office for advice. Then that advice was procured or secured the same day, then forwarded to the Minister for Finance for approval on the same day, and then forwarded to the office of the President. And I mean the office of President at that time, John Dramani Mahama, candidate Mahama of Bole, son of E.A. Mahama, sent to his office, and which approval was also granted the same day, 21st June 2011, and after that rushed to Parliament the same day. The approvals were expediently rushed through because of what the interested parties sought to gain. It is worth noting that while the Airbus company entered into a deferred prosecution agreement with the various international law enforcement agencies, the investigations into various individuals involved are still ongoing and may result in further prosecution. It is again worth noting that since judgment on the Airbus scandal was pronounced, and I have said this before, but I want to repeat, that former President Mahama has not traveled to the UK, mainland Europe, or the United States of America since then. Would Mr. Mahama like to offer an explanation to the people of Ghana as to exactly why he has been unable to travel to these countries? In the unlikely event that he gets elected as president once again, Ghanaians have a right to know if he's a man of international good standing and of his ability to represent Ghana in international affairs. The MPP would encourage all law enforcement agencies, both domestic and international, to pursue individuals involved in the scandal to the fullest extent of the law. And quite frankly, I find it inexcusable that we would say that because he's running for office or he's standing in an election, therefore he should not be questioned because it will be construed as witch hunting. I think that what we politicians do to this country is most unfair, that when we have served in office as government officials and we have dirtied our hands and sullied our reputation, that immediately thereafter, for fear of being asked to pay for our crimes, we run and we occupy party positions, national organizer, women organizer, party chairman, this, that, presidential candidate, so that immediately an attempt is made to bring us to account for our crimes, we say that, hey, we are witch hunting the chairman of a party or the candidate of a party. I think that crime is crime, and we should learn as a country not to insulate politicians who dirty their hands. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, there can be no safe haven for individuals who engage in bribery and corruption at the expense of those they purport to serve. The people of Ghana are all too familiar with the scandals that surrounded the Mahama-led NDC government. For 8 years, we were told that the government couldn't afford to pay its debts. We were told that teachers and nurses' allowances had to be cut because there was no money. We were told that nurses' training allowance had to be cut because there was no money. We were told that lecturers were at the brink of forfeiting their research allowances because there was no money. We were told that Ghana did not have enough resources to implement a free senior high school policy. Indeed, we were struggling to pay salaries in those years. Indeed, worse still, we ran to the IMF for a bailout because, as candidate Mahama put it at that time when he was president, they had eaten the meat to the bone, unquote. The reality is that they robbed the country blind. They plundered the country's resources for their own benefit. They picked all the meat clean off the bone and left the rest of us to clean up their mess and foot the bill. Since 2017, President Akufo-Addo and the MPP government has indeed cleaned up their mess. We have turned the country around and are back on track toward collective growth and prosperity. We cannot afford to return to the days of the NDC's mismanagement, incompetence, and corruption. We do not want to be sent back to the days of Dunso, no chalk, and negative growth. On Monday, December 7, we urge all Ghanaians to turn out en masse to protect our progress and give President Akufo-Addo 4 more years to do more for you. Vote number 1 on the ballot. Thank you, and God bless you and bless our nation, Ghana.
And afterwards, that'll be it. Okay.
And
you do some small in 5 minutes.
Enuanomone adofo. Edamase se anope ye to nsafre mu magye ye subiom. Yeguso damase. Se ne mu ne yen ye cooperative se ne ye be ya Ghana amamuo ebe konenim. Na ene ye frɛ mu a enye bone.
So chief, why episode why you bet for the alphabet 20? No sir, I'm for 90 back. Why? Why episode why you bet to record it to your fat 20 Madam chief.
Enuanom ye frɛ mu a enye bone. Ne tie ne sɛ nanu ye frɛ mu ba ha yi a bebi a megine yi a ema me de nsɛm bi ebeto mu anim. Ena NDC for enso eto nsafre won efrem e won headquarters na ye frem no ye kyerem nsem ana wo moti wo headquarters eka say President Akufo-Addo agye bribe enya no wo video so a ogye bribe ena ye nso no ye kyerem video no. Oh, they don't want you in the thing. Enuanom NDC for ebo modern biara say omode betu dwa say President Akufo-Addo enya no video so a oji sika we be friend no bribe. Nanso sese no abede di fefe se sa asem no eye party donation and obi be ye ma Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as candidate of the new Patriotic Party in 2016 and oma doctor no and oma ye ne say ye fan say ni di say oye president no oje bribe Nana no say ne me kan ye no obi be ji bribe kra 230,000 Ghana cedis bribe ena omampenyi eje. Mo kai say me catch them mo say $230,000 cedis no. Entimi nto Ford Expedition na Mahama Jifi kanazo yi hono ni engine kra sa sika no entimi ento. Na eno de yemfa nto nchen because eno de se propagandist ne party foot soldiers efre press conference try say omo be propaganda tia omampanyi a eno de enye bone ye de beche na se obi a wedi oman yi so pen waye omampanyi pen as they say oye candidate of the major opposition party eno so be ko ono ankasa ni social media page ni Facebook ni Twitter handles akotro say President Akufo-Addo ampa say video no no kre say Akufo-Addo agi bribe na say na former president and wo kasa wo try say ubegu Ghana mampanyin hu fi on your own social media page say ne wo ka say one achemfo nyina saka awafo na say no what descend sa low levels no ekoye sa ni omen na ye frɛ mo say wa basa dia ono ankasa de ne ho abegi mu dia ene ye nkyerɛkyerɛ mu ye magana fo enhu nie oye bribe gifo wo Ghana say wo de tape na wakofa na wo doctor no nsɛm a mekyerɛ wo brofu mu a besi ye no say ne mu nyina mu nyum deda no ne obro no frɛ no the biggest global bribery scandal chese ewiase afa na nyina efiri se otumfo nyankopon ebo Adam ebesi ne bribe asemo a eye kese pa ewo wiase no President Mahama eka ho bi ekasa bribe no ho bi wa ewiase afa na nyina ya bo din se oye bribe gifo na bribe na wo gye ye no nso since I otumfo nyankopon bo Adam besi ne nipa bia involve ne ho ne sa case no wo na wo be kire obi ho asem a President Akufo-Addo ho asem wo Facebook wall na sansem yi efa Airbus scandal ho say no ewiase nyina enim ho bi say as president we direct negotiations with Airbus say beto aircraft ama oman Ghana and through that no Airbus etua wo bribe 5 million euros bribe anka wo page ena omuntimi ntua mawo as omampanyinti ukofa wo nua Samuel Adam Mahama ebe bata ho edene ye middleman edene she mfimfin ena ono eje bribe no na nkrofo no kra ka say sa bribe no omuntimi mfa man direct efi say ni nua ono so ni nua ne directly to the president nti eno nso no ebe dey dipefe it will show nti ena ono ni nua no omo share sumase na omo register a company omo de ko share Spanish company bi ase which they registered in Ghana in December 2009 and omo register no UK in 2010 February 2010 and a through sa Spanish company no Airbus etua sika no edema wo mo na nsemo ameka nyina menuanom eye ade a ye buhu tan dada a court a determine case no dada a ne records edaho make brofu mu no me quote from court case no documents ne pages kama e de kyerɛkyerɛ ena sese me ne wo kase since February 2020 a case ne break ye omampanyin dada Mahama na ne anim say almost every 2 weeks bia or London or France or America since a ofia konwa so in 2017 almost all the time or wakwantu musa and ubisa office of the chief of staff on bekache on the air ticket ye tua back and forth almost all the time or to akwan and then in February since court no in the UK ebu atan eka say why you corrupt na why you bribe up to now 1.29 biom NC Europe and I say UK bebia and I say America bebia I don't know so say obeko because ukwa ye becho ye be bisa wonsem na we any ye kire Ghana for say aden ena obi besi na dwimpi say okoto aba ama obi a ono no ontimi ntu ni nan ensi abrochirememu empo ena wakope bibi papa e de abre oman Ghana because they say baby a ewiase edu no obroni beka we cannot be an island unto ourselves yentimi yenkoa entena ha enye se ye ne obia enni mpensemu bia na se yebenya president a ontimi ntu kwan a ebeye den na oman na ye den akoso inti ene ye pese ye kire ye frɛ ye no ye kire President Mahama say Obroni say if you live in a glass house don't throw stones. Now wo a wo take glass house mo wo na wo to bo I think say Ghana for yensi adwempi say esan say government official one oye John Dramani Mahama owo asem kese sa edani tiri so ewo international courts mu a ontimi ntu kwan bi on yenya ya dwen say sa papa no ye ma no emben Ghana konwa ho bebiara da empo ena wa de Ghana akoyechi nemum ye kan we nyina no ene esan ka say emum ye bo president akufo-addo abaso say no say mu ni mu no e ba so no esan say court ebu tan a determine say ebu atan a determine say omodi for no court no abeli won $4 billion United States dollars e was omutua as compensation for saying omo bribe these officials in these countries. Now President Akufo-Addo initiative processes obeye dey obeji ye chefa e de abreye. So we want our share of sub bribery money no, and amount for estimate say it will be in the region of about $30 million ebebe Ghana fan to compensate us for the way your taxpayers ekodi Mahama brothers abotomo intino yeda Akufo-Addo ase ena yesusu so say inshallah December 7 yatunu boom na January yeso ni in ria sa sikai ebeba ema ya de ye nyomapa ewo oman Ghana hanom na minia ni krakra ne say sa dili enye say court a ewo abrochirememu UK court ene kan yemponti ena say adedi say corruption wom mokaya 2011 21st June 2011 Honorable Oseche Mensa Bonsu na oye minority leader no omo de sa aircraft airbus deal eba parliament within 1 day ena deal call attorney general hall for advice wo de hwe documents akesiesa attorney general timi kind documents ni nyina within a quarter of a day or a fraction of a day ema approval epia call Ministry of Finance ema Ministry of Finance ehweye epia call Office of the President ema Office of the President approve ye ema call Parliament ema ye call pass ye ade esan say ye pen ten na ya jiho bribes inti na Oseche Mensa Bonsu so ka say at that time no call Airbus for website aircraft na mo pese o mo tono for 34.5 million euros because the omode ba parliament no na 34.5 million euros na omo say omo to aircraft ba ko now so at that time no call company no website aircraft no was $22 million and omode inflate call 34.5 million euros all in a bid they say ye be nyesika e de ahye ye botum na Ghana for abre na me catch them say katashi sene proye wo hoi e bia wo be hu ni say oh obi na enya ni sika keke there be enye sa wo de hwe ambulances 307 ambulances here President Akufo-Addo eto ye ya ene eho won faso ema Ghana fo nyina wo de hwe zip line services are set up as say you know obi wo ekurasi no ho a fanchine ko ana prapra bebida na se oyare na se yepe enro asane yare na ebi ni ho a drone etimi tu ene ya etimi di drone no ekoma nipa no ema yesan ne ho yare yemfa ne se nkenye aban papa ne omanpanyin a owo abadaye ewo tema ewo mobrohunu a ena ono nso saa sike yi nyina odi ye saa nyuma pa yi nyina no ono nso de ye bribery nsem ena oje 5 million euro edi share ni botomu a nka nkrofo ewu ani sene under President Mahama na ambulances be the whole Ghana na be 50 ambulances or less than so ambulances in the whole of Ghana ana nkrofo ewu so 5 million euro bribe ya uji adan kan ntimi nto all these ambulances enye free SHS na we say free SHS no yentimi nye ne ade nti minuanom sene etieni nti ye pamocho ye pray mfo say ye be ka kire mo say na do danko akufo-addo oye nyamisroni owotema owabadaye owomobrohuno na oni Ghana fo adini yi na yenhwe yaman no dachi na yento aba no ema na akufo-addo na ma yento ma obi biara ontimi ntu kwan enkoje bibiara enfamreye medamase nyame shiramo no shira Ghana fo na yeje anshikuri hanu wani to babu lefi party executives nso na wannan maganganu babu lefi amma a ce candidating NDC da kanshi ya je ya rubuta kan Facebook wall shi da ko ina kaman lalle gaskiya wanda shi da shi suna compete for president of Ghana ya je an shi bribe sai muka ce wannan dai ba mu zauna wannan abu aiku a cikin kasan Ghana mun gwada mun nuna ma yan Ghana wanda lalle gaskiya ya zama wanda ke ansan bribe kuma mu ba doctored video muke kawowa ba muna kawo takaddun da aka je court an bi hanyar shari'a an tabbata kaman lalle candidate John Dramani Mahama da kanisa Samuel Adam Mahama sun je sayin aeroplane kuma cikin sayin aeroplane na sun anshi bribe 5 million euros sun sa kotokunsu saboda shi tun wannan court case aka yanka wannan magana aka ce lalle President Mahama ya je ya anshi wannan bribe February 2020 har yau bai kara taka kasan UK ko America ko Europe ko ina ba domin ana neman sa a tambaye shi batun wanga bribe saboda shi muka ce mun bari mun sanar da yan Ghana kaman candidate Mahama bai kamata a jefa mai kuriya ba saboda mun jefa mai kuriya bai ya ma ya je ko ina balle ya samu amfani ya ba yan Ghana mun gode assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you very much. God bless you.